Get her. Superman.
I love to play this game.
You love to play that game? Somebody was telling me the other day that they work at an elementary school and the kids are so impatient and they couldn't figure out why. I said it's because they live in an age of instant gratification. Anything that they want, they can just look up, Google, YouTube, and it's right there at their fingertips. Like, can you imagine if our kids had to wait for a VHS to rewind?
This one.
What's that sound?
What is that sound?
Tower of Terror.
Yeah, hit the next one.
That doesn't sound so far. That sounds like fire.
What was that?
That was Daddy. I
So, you were born in the United States.
Yes.
And both of your parents were born in the United
Yes.
States. Were their parents born here?
No. The Japanese side were both born in Japan.
It's not like you guys were
Fresh off the boat. No.
Yeah.
No, we were not.
That had to be difficult.
Well, I know it was very difficult for my family and a lot of the other Japanese American people who were in camp with us because, and I hear this from a lot of what we call third generation, which I am, a lot of the people who were interned in these camps never talked about it. The older people never talked about it after we got out, and the younger people talked very little about it. And I hear a lot of comments from other third generationers who said nobody ever told us about it because everyone was, number one, very ashamed that they were put in prison and having done nothing to warrant that. It was just a great deal of a whole bunch of questions that nobody had any answers for a very long time. I flew into the Boise, Idaho air terminal, and there was a worker there. I think she worked for the airport, and she said, "What are you here for?" And I said, "Well, I'm here to visit the internment camp for the Japanese Americans when we were interned back in World War II." And she said, "What?" And so I told her about it. She said, "You're kidding." She knew nothing about it. And she was, I would say, probably close to 30 years old. And she said she had never heard of such a thing. And it was just like 100 miles from Boise.
Wow.
So people have to know. People have to know what happened.
Yeah.
People have to know the history of where they live and the United States and the whole people in general of the United States of what happened.
Right. Well, and it's like my husband and I were talking, and I told him that to our kids and even our generation, we haven't ever really been affected day-to-day life-wise by any historical event. And once you get removed from pretty much your generation, getting out of the Depression era, getting out of the World War eras, but once you get much past, you know, people who were born in the 1930s, 1940s, we don't have a whole lot in history that really affects our daily lives. And to our kids, all this is something that they pick up in a history book, and maybe there's a paragraph about the Japanese internment mixed in with everything else about Pearl Harbor and World War II, and then they just put it on a shelf and forget it.
Yeah, and I think it's that way with a lot of history. We Japanese Americans who are in the second or third generation, we are kind of dying out now. And I'm 76 today. And if we don't tell our story and let people know what happened to us and keep that in the forefront, it'll just get put under the rug and people won't know about it. So
Buried in a pile of books. Is there anything that you remember specifically about the camp, about the conditions, things that people should know that only read about it in the history books? Because we weren't taught in school what it was like.
I know. There was a barracks there. And it was this long building, and it was divided up into about 6 apartments. Each apartment was probably no more than 12 feet square, if that. And the entire family that was their home. And they had these cots. They had a spring thing for you to lie on, and you went out and you had this canvas thing that you went out and put straw in, and that was your mattress. And so those had to be dumped and refilled every now and then. The floors were rough lumber. I remember my mother saying that my legs used to be just black with splinters from crawling on the floor. There was no insulation in these places. We had a pot-bellied stove in each unit, and that was our source of heat. There was no running water. Just the very barest is just pretty bleak, honey.